Yeah. Well, we've got a really amazing bug eater here. He also happens to be our bug chef. But Dave Gracer here, he did a whole show where it was like Super Size Me. For an entire month, he ate 70% of his diet just insects.
Wow.
Yeah. He did it. He's going to tell you all about it. He's still here to live and tell the story and tell you how healthy he felt after that experience. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Dave Gracer. He's going to do some amazing food cooking of bugs, and you guys are going to get to eat some of them. And this is also a great demonstration for you guys to ask a lot of questions. He's got a lot of answers, so hand it over to Dave Gracer.
Thanks, Leela. Thanks, everyone, for coming out. So, you guys enjoying the bug fair? Yeah, excellent. All right, and in fact I saw quite a few of you over at, I was actually manning a table. There's a couple companies now that are making edible insect products in this country for human consumption. It's a new thing, and I actually recall seeing just a couple of you at the table, including a couple of you who just raised your hands like, no, I don't eat bugs. I saw a couple of you eating bugs today, which is great. So there is a movement. There's the bug chefs. There are people who run restaurants. There are scientists. There are people in this country and in countries around the world. And in case, perhaps some of you had heard, in case you hadn't heard, the FAO, which is the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, released a big report, 200-page report, last week on how insects are a good food in countries in which they're used, and traditionally, and all around the world. And it's a fascinating thing because we're at the crux of like maybe a new age for bug eating. So you guys can be part of that. Let me ask you a couple questions. So how many of you have eaten bugs at the bug fair? Go ahead. All right. And how many of you have eaten bugs not at the bug fair? Oh, that's quite a few. That's great. All right. How many of you garden? Okay. See? And how many of you go bird watching? All right, see, not many. So the thing is that when people think about eating bugs, often they think about the ew thing, and bugs are gross. And that's fine, that's understandable. Eating bugs, I think, really has to do with getting closer to nature. And a lot of people who live in cities, they don't interact with nature so much, and so therefore when they see bugs, they see cockroaches in their houses. They see bed bugs, maybe. Right, okay, and bed bugs freak us out because, hey, they suck our blood. I mean, what's what they do, right? All right. What a perfect way to get back at the bed bugs and the mosquitoes that chew on us is to eat some of them. So that's what we're going to do some of today. Yes, it's true that a few years ago I did this show in which I made insects 75% of my diet for 30 days. I had no animal protein because I love beef and pork and chicken and all that. I had no animal protein except for bugs. I made bugs 75% of my food intake for the whole month. And I was checked out by a doctor at the beginning and at the end. And although I had lost quite a bit of weight, my blood worked out just fine. They checked my blood. I had slightly elevated counts of proteins in my blood because of all the proteins in my food, and my energy level was totally fine all month. I actually interviewed a U.S. congressman in D.C. about, hey, let's get some research subsidies for bug research, and he looked at me like I had 7 heads. Which, okay, all right. So today I'm going to do some crickets and rice, which is very similar to some dishes that I had in Thailand. I've been to Southeast Asia a couple times, and it's pretty cool to go to a place where eating bugs is normal. I also had scorpion while I was there. Big scorpions, a lot like emperor scorpions, which are actually from Africa. But the forest scorpions from Southeast Asia are very, very similar. And when they're deep fried, they are not tasty. In case any of you have wondered what scorpion tastes like, I can tell you, really not the best bug. But if that doesn't satisfy your curiosity, it just so happens that with my sort of little company over in Providence, Rhode Island, where I live, I can fill an order for scorpions or cicadas or a bunch of other things, some of which is really hard to find from other sources. As Leela had mentioned, I'm actually a teacher in my regular life. I teach community college. And so what I constantly exhort my students to do is to ask questions. So I'm going to need some questions from you guys, or some stories. I'd love to hear some stories about either bugs you've eaten or other bizarre foods. But I'd like this to be a kind of conversation and not just me. I am going to need one or two helpers in just a little bit. Okay? One or two helpers. But for the moment, you guys have any questions while I get things started? Yes? How did I really get into this whole bug thing? Yeah, well, the short version is that an old college buddy of mine, I went to Bard College in New York State, a college buddy gave me mealworm snacks. They're actually the same kinds of things that are in the gift shop. They're from Hot Licks, a company here in Southern California. And Hot Licks has made these little boxed up insect snacks for a couple decades. So he gave them to me as a gift. And he gave them to me because I have a nature boy background. I was a wild mushroom hunter at the time, and I was really into foraging. And he gave it to me as like a challenge gift. Like, dude, you keep talking about all these bizarre foods you're eating these days, you're doing the mushrooms, here you go. And neither he nor I knew that it would change my life. So that one experience of trying those bugs made me curious to learn more. Cool. Do you have a question? She got a bug. Okay, can we cook that one? Can we cook your bug? Yeah? Oh, okay. Great. Okay, no. It's a pet. What kind of bug is it? It's a tarantula. Great. So my esteemed colleague, David George Gordon, writer of the Eat a Bug Cookbook, best known insect cookbook out there, about to be reprinted, he has cooked tarantula many times. Me, I don't go there, so you get to keep that. Great. Okay. Yes, sir.
What is your tastiest bug?
Right. Well, out of the 60 or 70 types of bugs that I've had, there's 2 or 3 that rise to the surface, so to speak. One of them is called a waxworm. Not the prettiest name in the world. It's not a worm, it's a caterpillar, just like a silkworm is a caterpillar. And it's called a waxworm because they actually, in nature, exist in beehives, eating beeswax and honey and pollen. So they eat a lot of amazing stuff. They taste like pine nuts. So there's those, and then there's, believe it or not, stink bugs. If ever you guys have a chance in Mexico to eat humiles, humiles are fantastic. And if you get stink bugs and you cook them up, you'll be pleasantly surprised, I think. So those are ones, yeah. Right, well the FDA is slowly coming to the realization that it's getting time to regulate bugs as food. Thus far, they haven't been at all. It's been a complete gray area. I've had house visits from FDA inspectors. Well, a bug, well, they would say an arthropod other than crustacean. So they would say a terrestrial arthropod. You could say a hermit crab is a terrestrial arthropod, but it's a crustacean, right? So the fact is that at this point, and I'm only about 95% certain of this because I'm not a very methodical guy. I'm not in the regulations end. I kind of operate in this way. So the fact is that I'm pretty sure that there's no regulations pertaining to bugs in particular, to insects in particular. It all has to do with food safety guidelines in general. So the fact is, and also let's keep in mind that you go to a fancy restaurant, you order a tuna steak, that's coming out of the ocean. That's a wild caught animal. So you can't really go to many restaurants and get elk or deer, right? I've eaten coyote and bobcat and raccoon and otter, but that was at a game dinner. The fact is that the game laws, I'm getting off the track here, but game laws don't really apply to seafood. Right? It's just this water-land thing. So Typhoon down in Santa Monica is famous for having insects on the menu. In the Santa Monica airport. Now you know. It's one of the best-known insect restaurants in the country. Out of the, 4 or 5.
That's what you learned about.
So they have stuff that they get from Asia and elsewhere, and you'd have to ask them about the FDA regulations. I don't know. Yeah. But it's getting there. The fact is that World Entomophagy, the table where I was at, we are actively pursuing conversations with the FDA to get it regulated, to get it standardized. Yeah, cool. All right. I'm happy to take more questions as we go. I'm going to focus on this. But the fact is that insect eating has become so fascinating to me. I've been writing a book for a little while now, trying to get to the bottom of why it's such a problem, why it's such a big, hairy deal for so many people. Bug eating, ew. So I've actually been figuring it out, and I think it has to do with kind of what I was saying about the gardening and the bird watching, right? We don't hang out in nature very much, and bugs and nature are like this. You don't have much nature without bugs, and of course, the whole colony collapse disorder thing having to do with honeybees, it's a pretty serious concern if you like to eat food, as so many people do, because, you know, pollination, that kind of thing. Right. All right. So yeah, getting to the bottom of the whole thing is a really cool thing to be doing. And I've got some amazing ideas. Darwin. You know, people had a problem with Darwin's ideas when they first came out in around 1859 when Origin of Species was produced. Because people didn't like the whole idea that we were directly related to other animals. What was true for them is true for us. People couldn't really handle it very well back then. Darwin was saying, you know what, we're basically the same as apes. Well, now what entomophagy is saying is that if things change, as things change going forward, 9-10 billion people in 2050, which is not that far away, if we have to eat bugs, well, a lot of primate species eat bugs. So if we have to start living like monkeys, when the FAO report came out, and there were all these articles that I just mentioned around the world in the press, guess what the commentary sections were full of? The commentary sections for these news articles, what were they full of? Rage, incredible frustration, hate mail for the UN, hate mail for Obama, just a whole lot of those people are the problem. That kind of thing. It's a little problem. Yeah. So, all right. Can I get a helper now? I need 1 or 2 helpers. Let's see. Yes. Oh, well, you seem motivated. Sure. All right. Come on. All right. Yes. All right. And 1 more. Sure. Okay. Come on. Okay. So, what to do? Now, to be honest with you, I was a big softie by saying yes to 2 people. I would have liked to say yes to another 7 or 8 people. But then more of you would have just been standing here doing nothing. So, no offense, I'm going to let him do the cutting. Okay, so, all right, so, buddy, I would like you to take this, not yet, all right, and we're going to turn this into that size. Your hands are clean? Yeah, he said, yeah, fine, well then that's good enough for me. All right, okay, so, what's your name? What? Oh, you're Sasha. And what's your name, buddy? Rocco? Marco. I could have asked that before. Yes, Sasha and Marco. Thank you for being my helpers. What can I ask Sasha to do? Okay. Do you know how to